the next set of presentation is designed for us to listen to the work coming from on the ground. So we started this morning with government agencies discussing with us how the US government supports trade with Africa. But one of the things I also said was, representatives of the country, can you please tell us about what you have to offer? 2 years ago, I actually had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Doug McMillan, who is the CEO of Walmart and has been a great support, as you all can see. But he asked me a simple question: what does Africa want to sell? So I've invited representatives of regions to please come and educate us. What do you have to offer the global market? There are 54 countries. There's diversification. There are different things going on, but where do we start from? So is Lola Jemibewon in the room? Yes. You're representing Nigeria. You know, the president and CEO of Nigerian Export Council was going to be here, but there was a personal emergency that happened on Tuesday, so he wasn't able to, but he sends his well wishes, and Lola will be representing him. Please come up.
Thank you for that, Toyin. And like Toyin said, I am not Olusegun Awolowo. My name is Lola Jemibewon, or Lola Jembewon, depending on the audience. My CEO does send his apologies. He really wished he could be here, but had to face a bit of a last-minute emergency and had to return to Abuja unexpectedly. So I will do my best to represent him here today. All right, so we're here for a great reason, obviously. I've been so excited to participate both yesterday and today in the conversations we've been having here. This is a great time to be having these conversations, and this is a great place to be having these conversations. As someone who works for the government, I understand that a lot of times we focus our energy on DC, or in Nigeria's case, Abuja. So actually getting out of the capital, interacting with people who work in industry is something that I think is incredibly valuable. Right. So today I'll be discussing business opportunities in Nigeria's non-oil export space. And to begin, there's a clip that I'd like to play.
Well, I would like to visit Nigeria. I'd like very much to visit Nigeria. It's an amazing country, and in certain ways, I hear from the standpoint of the beauty of a country, there's no country more beautiful. So I would like to.
All right, so that was just 2 weeks ago, last week of April, when President Buhari visited President Trump. And so why did President Trump say these things? Because I actually think he was dead on the spot. Nigeria is an incredibly dynamic country, and even though most people here in Nigeria, you think oil, we are a lot more than oil. Nigeria's economy is incredibly diversified. The issue is our export base is not. Okay, so what is the Nigerian Export Promotion Council? So NEPC, which is the agency I work for, is the agency of the federal government of Nigeria responsible for the development and promotion of all non-oil exports from Nigeria. So everything from agro-commodities, which is mainly what I deal with, services, to our tourism sector, pharmaceuticals. If it's not oil, NEPC has its hand in it. So our vision is to make the world a marketplace for Nigerian non-oil products. Our mission is to spearhead the diversification of the Nigerian economy by expanding and increasing non-oil exports for sustainable and inclusive economic growth. So a little bit of information about Nigeria, and this is something that probably most of you in this room have an idea about. Nigeria is the largest economy on the African continent. It's a position we grapple with our South African counterparts with, but currently we're fortunate enough to have that title. In the ECOWAS region, ECOWAS being the economic community of West African states, Nigeria is the largest country, representing about 77% of the regional GDP. But what does Nigeria have to offer besides oil? So I'd mentioned it before. The Nigerian economy is incredibly diversified. Our economy is actually made up predominantly of the service industry, followed by agriculture. The issue is our export basket, and our foreign exchange generation is mainly in oil. But we are the largest economy in Africa. We have the largest population in Africa as well. Nigeria is a country that's made up of over 250 different ethnic groups, speaking almost 500 languages. Nigeria is a country in which the vast majority of the land is arable. Nigeria is a country where things grow whether you want them to or not, from weeds to pineapples. Nigeria is also a country with incredible mineral wealth. This is something a lot of people don't know. There's a saying that's said in the north that on a dusty day in Zaria, when you kick sand, you're kicking gold. So it's a country of immense wealth and immense potential. In 2014, with the crash in global oil prices, Nigeria did enter a period of crisis. The fall in oil prices meant the country lost nearly 30 billion USD in foreign exchange revenue. However, since then, the country is making marked recovery. Some things to note in Nigeria's recovery post the 2014 crash in oil prices. There has been steady growth, and toward the end of 2016, we were able to exit recession. So Nigeria is growing again. Our economy is still very strong. We are the economic power for ECOWAS. Our demographic growth is one of our greatest assets. The majority of Nigeria's population is under 30 years of age. We are an English-speaking country. We have a dynamic workforce and low labor costs. Growth in the Nigerian economy is dominated by telecommunications, agriculture, and services, which I mentioned previously. And there's a mistake in the bottom chart, sorry, that's not ECOWAS by GDP, it's region by GDP. So since coming out of the financial crisis we had, the Nigerian economy is once again growing and is one of the fastest growing economies on the African continent. Right. Some other things, let me go back to this slide. Some other things I wasn't able to include in the slide that I also want to mention as far as our recovery goes. Our foreign exchange reserves currently are now again up to 48 billion USD. The central bank, they have decreased their sales in our foreign exchange market. It's down to 69% from the high, again, of 2014. International air load to and from Nigeria has increased almost 90%, again, since the low of 2014. Retail consumer traffic in malls throughout the country is skyrocketing. In Abuja alone, in the past 2 years, 2 major malls have been built. I'm happy we had the representative from Walmart talking. Both of those malls have huge game stores in them, so it's exciting to see. Internally generated revenue, our tax revenue is increasing massively. Q1 of this year, the country was able to collect 1.1 trillion naira in tax revenue. This is up from 770 million the same time frame in 2017. Bank lending rates are decreasing, commercial bank lending rates. There's also been an increase of over 500% of farm produce exports, again, since the low of 2014. Rail projects throughout the country are bouncing back. I don't know how many of you have been to Nigeria, but today you're able to catch a train from Abuja to Kaduna and back. Also in the works, the largest rice mill in sub-Saharan Africa, with a capacity of 200 metric tons per hour, is scheduled to be opened in January 2019 in Lagos. All right. So now I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about one of my most passionate initiatives that I have the ability to work on while at NEPC. It's our OSOP, One State, One Project, One State, One Product project. So Nigeria is a country with a tertiary system of government, much like the United States. We have the federal government, state governments, and local governments. And like I mentioned before, Nigeria is a country where land is abundant and anything can grow. So what we've done at NEPC is we worked with our state partners as well as local partners to identify agricultural products produced in each state that can be foreign exchange earning to replace oil revenue. So what OSOP does is it breaks up the country into geopolitical zones, and each geopolitical zone is assigned, based on natural endowments, products that are traded over $20 million annually, that if they were to target investment, can actually take over the money that the states would have earned in oil. So I'm going to go through each region and explain a couple of the things that we've identified as potential money earners for the states. So in the Northwest Zone, our major export drivers are cotton, leather, gold, and rice. Cotton alone has the potential to earn between 2 to 2.5 billion annually. In the Northeast zones, our major export drivers are cotton, leather, soya, and sugar. Leather, and a fun little fact that a lot of people don't know, but leather, Nigerian leather is some of the most highest quality leather produced in the world. I think a lot of times you think of leather products, you think about Europe, you think about Italian bags, Italian shoes, but upwards of 60% of Italian shoes are made with Nigerian leather. Those of you who've traveled to Kano, anyone who travels to Kano and visits any tannery in Kano will recognize the quality of the leather that's produced in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we have the raw leather, which is then exported. We don't produce leather shoes and bags ourselves. But the quality is something that the country does pride itself on. And with the right investment, this is something that can be scaled up where we can have indigenous firms and companies actually competing perhaps one day in these sectors. In the North Central region, again, we have soya, sugar, and rice. Rice is a very interesting one that the government, so I sit under the Ministry of Industry, Trade, and Investment, but the Ministry of Agriculture is very interested in also increasing rice yields because in addition to our ability to export rice, there's also a huge local demand for rice. So obviously any increase in rice production is first meant to meet local demand, with any extra being exported first to regional partners and then beyond the West African region. In the Southwest, our major export drivers are cocoa, petrochemicals and fertilizer, as well as palm oil. Yesterday, I had several conversations where people asked me, non-oil, what does Nigeria export besides non-oil? So our largest non-oil export today is cocoa, and cocoa is something that before we even discovered oil, Nigeria made itself a name for itself on cocoa. Lagos, Nigeria was at one point home to the largest building in Africa, which was built off, it's Cocoa House in Lagos for the Nigerians here, and it was built off proceeds from cocoa. There's an anecdotal story that goes around that Nigeria had colored television before France in the Southwest region. Again, this was from money from cocoa. We are the third largest cocoa producer in Africa today, behind Ivory Coast and Ghana. Our cocoa trees are old, our cocoa plantations are falling apart. With targeted investment, this is something where the country can see endless, absolutely endless potential. In the Southeast zone, we have palm oil, gold, rubber, and rice. Palm oil, again, very similar to cocoa. Palm oil is a product where in the 1950s and 1960s, Nigeria was the largest palm oil producer in the world. Again, there's an anecdotal story. Malaysian and Indonesian investors came to Nigeria. Today, Malaysia and Indonesia are the largest palm producers. They produce palm oil with palm kernel seeds found in Nigeria. In the South-South, our oil-producing region, we have petrochemicals, of course, fertilizer and ammonia, palm oil, and rubber. But outside of agro-commodities and agro-industries, like I mentioned, Nigeria's economy is actually dominated by the service sector. So in collaboration with the Commonwealth Secretariat, NEPC has identified 3 key areas in the service industry where, again, Nigeria has massive potential towards increasing employment as well as export opportunities, and that's ICT, the financial service sector, and entertainment. Again, I was having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday about Nigeria's financial sector. There's one thing that Nigeria can credit itself on is having a very robust, well-regulated, and a financial service sector that does meet international demand. Nigerian banks are found throughout the West African region, as well as all over the continent, especially in regions like East Africa, Nairobi, and Rwanda, is what we were talking about yesterday, and of course South Africa as well. As far as entertainment, Nollywood is the second largest film production center in the world, only behind Bollywood. Nollywood produces upwards of 200 movies a week. A week. Okay. This is a lot of movies, right? And actually, I was very excited because when I flew here via United, and United actually had a Nigeria movie section, which is huge. I think 10 years ago it was a joke. Nollywood movies, were filmed with people on their iPhones. So that's not the case anymore. This is an industry that the Lagos state specifically is really putting a lot of money into. We're increasing standards. Our movies are competing in international film festivals. And again, this is an area that just has untapped endless potential. Okay. I'm going to hurry up and wrap up. I've been told I only have a minute left. So in a quick conclusion, I'm actually not going to read that conclusion slide. There's one thing I wanted to mention really quickly. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time discussing Rwanda. And as someone who works on the continent, I have to say we in Nigeria know and recognize the amazing work the Rwandans have been able to do as far as moving their country forward. When President Buhari came in, one of the first things he did was to initiate a Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, and they've been tasked with helping Nigeria increase its ranking on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking. And what that means is that at the presidency, headed by the vice president, is a committee that's made up of legislative members, is made up of members of executive branches, state governments, local governments, and quarterly, this group is accountable for meeting certain targets. Now, just today, I wish I got it sooner, but just today I was emailed the PEPEC reforms for Q1 of this year. So please, if anybody wants a little bit more information on the things we've been doing, I highly recommend, or I highly encourage you to reach out to me. I'll email this document to you. I'll share this document to you. The Nigerian government is very dedicated to changing their narrative and the perception people have of their country. And if you haven't been to Nigeria in a while, if you've never thought about coming to Nigeria, I highly recommend all of you send me an email. We'll get you a visa on arrival. Please come visit. President Trump was not wrong when he said it's a beautiful country. So thank you.